Thank you so much for that. Happy to be here today. It's been quite a few enriching conversations since yesterday. And before going into the topic of diversity in research and insights, I think we have already seen a little bit from Katie as well. To start off with a little bit about my background, so I have a background in international politics, international relations, as well as international business. And one of those masters I did in France, and I'm working in Germany now. I've been working at S3 since the last 3 years. And I'm a little more sensitive to the topic of diversity itself because I've been constantly adapting to different people, different markets. And to give a simple example, when I started out at S3, it was more or less a complete German team. And then I had a colleague of mine who said, see, when you talk to some people here, there'll be some German directness. Please don't mistake it, but this is how it is. So it did take some kind of adapting for me to understand. And I'm generally a little more sensitive because I'm always careful, okay, am I communicating the right way? Are they getting the information the right way? So that in turn translates into how I proceed and complete my projects as well. So a little bit into my role at S3 itself. We are a very nascent team, so I was picked up on as a more of an experimental role for the DACH market, so for Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. We were focusing on market intelligence and trend analysis, and then we were also looking at some of the internal strategy decisions that the business was taking. So we were supporting that in terms of context and also providing internal and external data. We look at client and candidate insights. S3 is a recruitment firm, and we do recruitment for STEM positions, which means we are working across several industries, and we are working with clients and candidates who span all kinds of directions. Global and local research integration plays a very important aspect because each of our local markets are different, but we still play into global strategy. We need to have a central strategy, but it has very less impact when it comes to local implementation. And then, of course, insight to action enablement when it comes to sales or with the marketing teams or with the strategy teams. It's very important for us to establish that common loop and make sure they are giving us the assurance that, yes, we are implementing your particular insights into our activities. Otherwise, it's really difficult for us to track and come out with an ROI or say that, see, this is the change that we have implemented. It's been quite a challenge making that happen. So for S3, I think it's a little bit different when we look at companies like a product-based company or a particular service-based company. Our meaning of diversity is a lot more different. So first, we have a global company, S3, and we have multiple brands like Computer Futures, Progressive, Real, and under each of these brands, we are dealing with, like for example, under Computer Futures, we focus only on IT-based roles among all the industries, so manufacturing, telecom, and network. And under Progressive, we are focusing only on engineering-based positions, and a lot of times, the lines between these brands are pretty thin. And then if we take the global aspect of it, so in UK, we started off, we have all of these brands functioning perfectly well. But when we go to the US, we have some legal implications, which means that the same brand that communicates a particular message to a particular market cannot do the same in the other market. So the lines are completely blurred between the different brands. And then we have Madison Black, which completely goes. So we are also addressing the financial industry, or we are addressing the marketing industry, but we are still focusing on STEM roles within that particular industry. That in itself makes the challenge for us to, how do we address each of these brands correctly and make sure what we are saying makes sense to all of them. And then we look at the internal structure within our company. That is also, it's quite spread out. So if we take our office in Frankfurt, we have one team that works on the IT department, but the IT is so big that we have a team that specializes only with software development, and then we have another team that will specialize only with analysts. But then if we look at another industry, like the construction industry or the manufacturing industry, there are a couple of people who work for the entire vertical itself. So the needs of how they communicate with each other and how they work, how their daily work tasks differ, there's a lot of difference that comes into play over there. And for us, it's a lot more important to understand these nuances, because at the end of the day, we have to come up with solutions that we want them to use. And unless what we come up is something they cannot easily integrate into what they do, it's not going to work out. They're not going to make use of it. They're just going to give us a thumbs up saying, this is great information. I'll pass it on to my clients. I'll use it. But on their daily activity, it's not going to reflect much. And then we have 3 different sets of target clients. So we have our candidates, we have our clients, and we have our investors, whom we're not doing much on currently, but we focus to do on in the future. So in terms of candidates, like I said, we have Gen Z people whose needs, thoughts, pain points are completely different, to the point of people who are currently about to retire, and considering that the governments are considering increasing the retirement age because of shortage of skilled labor, that is a whole new concept that we need to deal with, trying to address the pain points of all of these candidates at the same time. And then in terms of clients, we have companies in construction, we have companies in life science, medtech, pharma, and so on, and we are trying to look at how each of those industries are volatile, how are they shifting, what are the investments that are coming in each of these industries. So in a way that when we talk about market research at S3, we are looking at everything. We are looking at what's happening with each of this industry. In this particular market, okay, on a global scale, these are the companies that are doing well, these are the investments that are coming up, but then on the local scale, no, the scales have changed. There's more startup action happening, but in some places there is more global investments that are coming up and opening up new corridors. So we are trying to focus on everything and still trying to integrate that with the global strategy of marketing or with business itself. So what I'm trying, or what I'm going to try to say here today is, based on all the experiences that we have had with several projects, we try to build a small framework that could probably help us. If we stick to those particular pillars, it will still help us to come out with something effective, and make sure that we build that particular feedback action loop and make sure they're implementing the insights that we are bringing out. So the first step is understanding how the company works, internal flows and nuances. I think for me, at the beginning, that was essential. So the recruitment industry itself has so many jargons, so many keywords that I think people within the industry itself are confused most of the times as, okay, you said contingent workforce, and then, okay, then you have project-based delivery services. There's such thin lines between each of those functions that even people who are within the industry are constantly confused as to what those keywords mean and how each of those workflows come into action. And when we look at our competitors as well, all of them are trying to create something new, right? So, but at the end of the day, recruitment is recruitment. You know, that there's a limit to what something new that you can do. But what can you do is you innovate a whole new feedback system, or you innovate a whole new system, which is the same thing that's being rebranded into different names or strategies. So at the beginning, it's very important to understand how each of those teams are working and then build our own solutions or results into the flow. To give a quick example for that, we did a project that was for internal strategy. And we know that the semiconductor industry and the battery industry and hydrogen industry, these are all industries that are coming up newly. And within our company, they always think about, okay, there are certain industries that are going to do big, so let us establish a hub for them. But there's a constant internal competition happening between the internal teams, because it's a competition at the end of the day. It's a sales organization. So it was left up to us to understand what the internal capabilities of each of these teams were, look at, okay, this city is doing this and this city is doing that, and then understand what the external market looks like, the geographic mapping of the entire industry, the value system, the value chain of the companies and everything. And then we came up with the recommendations of saying, these cities, you have these capabilities, please address this part alone. And then this is the kind of recommendation we came up for the semiconductor industry or the battery industry within the organization, and was happy to say it was 100% adopted, because they were having that internal problem of the communication was less, and they were constantly struggling in terms of how to overcome the competition and think along a singular line. So we were able to bridge that gap when we came in with that particular propositions. And then I think coming back again to what Katie said, engage your internal stakeholders. They reflect the nuances of your target audience. Yeah, when we have such a wide target audience, we don't have the time to go find out what each person likes or how each person is going to act. So it's been essential to just talk to your stakeholders who are working with that particular market or who are working with the particular clients. They talk the same language, they behave the same way, and they're going to tell you, in general, at least in random conversations, they're going to tell you what are the issues that they're facing or which are the ways they're struggling to communicate or struggling to make certain things happen. But of course, when we have a global lens and when we are listening to such stories, we are able to pick those points that are important to us and connect it across the different markets or connect it across different contexts and bring them together. And this third step is establishing what your global and local indicators are for each of your projects. So we generally have this market monitoring project that we do every quarter. So we have certain global indicators that we constantly monitor, like what is the recruitment statistics like for each of those countries or for each of those companies, and how are certain industries doing. These are some global indicators that the C-level executives are interested in. We are always talking about those, and we have a constant monitoring dashboard in place for those. But then when we talk about local indicators, then we are looking at certain political aspects, the legal aspects, and those are the things that are constantly changing. So every time we do a new project, I think it helps if we know what are those top 3 or 4 global indicators and local indicators, so that when we have to finally match up and bring out the insight to action portfolio, it's easier for us to bring out the story together. And at the same point, we're kind of thinking about the end solution as well. So it helps us take us in the right direction without getting lost in the entire process. And incorporating multiple voices in your journey. So most of the times, I think, I think a lot of us have faced, we get requests or we get statements saying, can you please find this about our customers, or can you please find this about? That's it, that's the only context they can understand. But from our point of view, we're always thinking about how can we establish a better context around this particular topic. Okay, you want to know this about our prospective customers or prospective clients. But no, let me first figure out what our internal people know about it already, because they've been talking, they've been doing this for years, and they've been doing it for ages. So let me first pick their brains. And then we need to know what your ex-clients or people who have left the company, what they have had something similar to say about the similar topic. And then we are looking at prospective clients. And just to give an example, we did a voice of customer program in which we were trying to focus on identifying new customer pain points and needs, but at the same time, we are looking at a new possible methodology to segment them. Because till now, we have always focused on firmographics. Basically, our salespeople depended on which industry it is, what's the size of the company, and so on. But we were thinking of introducing behavioral science into it. So how does organizational behavior help you segment your customers better, and how that can make things easier for your sales departments and the marketing departments. So before we went into that, first, of course, we looked at all the internal data, what kind of segmentation models they have used beforehand. And then we did focus groups across different countries, US, UK, Germany, and the Netherlands. We had groups of 5 or 6 internal stakeholders who came to those focus groups, and we spoke to them openly. We let them have an open discussion for more than 2 hours, where we were asking them, like, what from your different industries, what have your experiences been, what are the common complaints they come up with, what do those companies say about our competitors, and so on. And once we established that, we held live client interviews in each of those markets as well, and that gave us an opinion of the other side of the story. The clients told us, okay, we have all this, and this is what we expect from you. So it was flipping the sides of the coin. We got the opinions from both of the other sides. And once we established the concepts, we went ahead and did a much larger survey with prospective clients across the global scale, where we now we had the concepts that we wanted to ask about and we wanted to confirm to them with, and then we were also able to establish the behavioral analysis parameters for the organizations as well. So based on that particular result, we were able to categorize our clients based on which of these companies have a good which of them have a good mature hiring system in place, who has a good process in place. So based on these decisions, we were able to judge which of these clients we can approach faster, get better results, have a smooth process, and so on. And that's kind of right now in effect in terms of working. And then the last point that we would like to emphasize on is having multiple approaches to insight delivery. And I think in a company as complex as ours, we try to give the insights to the topmost people in general first. They hardly have the attention span of more than 30 to 40 minutes. So we need to give them the key indicators first. This is the main change that you need to make. If you make these changes, this is the results. These are the results that you will get. But then we realized that once we go to the next layer, if we are approaching the business stakeholders or the key account managers from the different companies, we started holding workshops with them because we realized that every time we had these discussions, there were so much other insights that were coming up, and it was essential to hold a workshop with those people so that we can make this a constant loop. Some of this information has to feed back constantly. These are projects that are volatile enough that they will continue progressing into the future. So for the monitoring, for making the monitoring system better as well, we started having this workshop so that we could get them to think about stuff. We could get an assurance that these are the points they would definitely incorporate within their activities. And then we were able to get what are the further thought process points that you would like us to explore. How can we fit this into your daily working system? So these are conversations that we regularly embedded into the entire system. And then we were able to bring it out better. I mean, we even skirted the possibility of when we were doing market intelligence discussions, why not release this as a podcast for the entire company so that we're not able to reach all the people, but if we want to really enable our salespeople to become more like consultants and not just sales, these are information bits that they need to know, but it's hard to disperse it. So why not just do a podcast and give them some more thought process around the whole scenario as well. So put together, in our experiences we have done in the last 3 years, we have done quite a few projects which have been successful internally and they've established as well. It helped that when we saw through each of these points separately and tried to implement them in the process strategy itself, we were able to have better results. And we also made all our stakeholders believe that we are taking you along in the journey. Come with us. You see what we are doing. You're always there in our thought process. You're there in our mind when we are trying to come up with strategies. So we're not connecting only with the C-level people. You also play a major part. So when we do the final delivery, the acceptance is a lot more easier. They take it and they're able to implement it, and they show an enthusiasm when the feedback loop is also resuming. So that has really helped us get through the entire process and have a comfortable solution. But overall, so basically, we are still thinking a lot. We're a very nascent company. Like I said, we're just 2 people in my team. And thankfully, Sthree has given us a lot of chance to be creative, do whatever you want kind of situation right now. But we are definitely trying to, whatever we implemented so far, we're trying to scale it up. And I think that's the next journey. I'm here today to, of course, gather all those stories and see how I can make it happen in my own company. At the end of the day, hitting the target is what matters. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Prajitha.